Welcome to Stories of the Bible, and today we're going to look at the story of Isaac. He is, in some respects, a little bit of the forgotten patriarch in some regards, but yet his life is a hugely important link in the chain, that patriarchal chain of Israel and for us as Christians. And so we'll look at his life and his maybe in some ways unassuming life and some of the things that he did that are hugely important, but in some regards get a little bit overshadowed by Abraham and by his son Jacob. Now, when you look at the patriarchs, you have Abraham and Jacob, and a little bit, they're like bookends that overshadow the middle, which is Isaac. And so when I think about Isaac, I think a little bit of someone who is an underdog in some ways, someone who seems by personality to be a little bit passive. I see someone who's a bit of maybe an underachiever in some respects, some might say, but really not fully the case. But certainly a victim. And a bit passive, and he was certainly an agreeable type. You know, he's a kind of a person that's just going to be okay with what happens, and he doesn't really flex his muscle. He doesn't really declare war. He doesn't push back. But yet he's a guy that just lives his life, does the right thing, and then over time, there was tremendous blessing that he was able to reap. So, having said that, let's pray and we'll start on our journey today, okay? Father, thank you for this opportunity to be able to teach your word. Open up our hearts. I pray that the Holy Spirit will teach us truths and give us understanding from the life of Isaac. And this I believe you'll do in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so let's think about Isaac here for just a minute. He's really in a no-win situation because he is the son of a highly successful father. Well, how successful is Abraham? Well, Abraham is successful enough that the three major monotheistic religions on earth all kind of owe their patriarchal fatherhood to Abraham. The Jews certainly do that. The Christians, through that Jewish root, we do that. But also the Muslims of the world look to Abraham as their patriarchal father. So, boy, that's pretty tough. Those are big shoes to fill, wouldn't you agree? If you were Isaac, Isaac is not the one that I would want to be. Certainly Abraham, he's like this overachiever and trusts God. And as I said, it's like most of the earth today, 4,000 years later, most of the world today owe their faith to his patriarchal fatherhood, kind of the wellspring of their faiths. Well, that is, how do you go beyond that? How do you beat that? Well, how are you going to want to be the son of that guy? Right? You talk about an overachiever as a father. How do you fill those shoes? Well, then you look at his son Jacob, and he had two twins, and Jacob gets his name changed to Israel. And so when we talk about Israel, well, he's their namesake, or they're his namesake, whatever. That's what the nation is named after, Israel. And Jacob is an exciting figure anyway, right? He's got this interesting story. You know, he is a deceiver, but then he himself gets deceived, and then he brokers this agreement with Laban, his uncle, for not just one daughter, but then the second daughter. And so he has this experience with God, and he wrestles with an angel. And so, Jacob ends up having all these kids and, goes through all of this. I mean, a whole Netflix series could be made about Jacob, right? And certainly volumes of books have been written about Abraham. But what about Isaac? It's like, Isaac, yeah, he's the nice kid, right? Okay, so think about Isaac's life here for a minute. Like Isaac is a little kid. I don't know. He might have been. He certainly was smaller than his older half brother Ishmael, but Ishmael is a bully, and so he kind of bullies Isaac around. So Isaac grows up getting bullied by his older half brother, and then Isaac's mom has to step in, and Sarah has to settle the whole thing by getting rid of the problem. It's like, maybe in some ways, or at least a perspective from Ishmael and from Hagar, it's like, well, here's this little kid, this little scrawny kid, and the only way for Isaac to win, or for Isaac to be preserved, is you got to get rid of the problem. And who got rid of the problem? Well, his mom did. So maybe you got this picture of a little scrawny kid, and he gets bullied, and his mom has to step in and take care of him. Well, that's no way to grow up, right? That's no way to gain respect from your peers. But that's kind of Isaac's life. Well, so he's bullied around. Well, he gets a little bit older, and I don't know, he's probably a teenager or maybe a young man. And think about this, like your father ties you up and takes you up on a mountain to kill you. Like, you can't make this stuff up, right? So here he is, here's little Isaac, and he's a mama's boy in some respects, and he gets picked on, and he's bullied, and now he's victimized by his own father, who takes him up on a mountain, ties him up, and Isaac just, Isaac was probably old enough to resist. He was probably strong enough he could have pushed back, but Isaac didn't push back. It's like, you have this passivity that just follows him throughout his life. And so he's victimized by his own father, who ties him up and is getting ready to stab him. But God intervenes now. It's like, wow, okay, well, thanks, Mom. Thanks, God. Or I would have been, I would have had a really rough life and being bullied and abused by my older half brother. Thanks, God, because Dad wanted to kill me, like your own father wants to kill you. So, there's that. And, and he gets married, but he's 40 years old when Abraham finally brings his wife. I mean, think about it. It's like, 40 years old. That's pretty old to have your first girlfriend. But, he didn't have a girlfriend because Mom and Dad wouldn't let him have one. I mean, this is Isaac. This is his life. So finally, Rebecca, who was a distant cousin. Wow. Again, you can't make this stuff up. So finally, he has a girlfriend. It's a distant cousin, and he's 40 years old. And so they're married, and she can't have kids. And this goes on for 20 years where she can't have kids. And so here he is, the son of this famous, wealthy father who's been victimized and bullied. It's like this passivity just kind of follows him. And then he goes to a place in his life where he finds himself in a place called Gerar. Now, it's interesting. The geography of Israel here needs to be explained. Gerar is in the area that is occupied by the Philistines, and it is on the western side of Israel near the Mediterranean Sea. It is the major trade route for trade between Israel, or Canaan in that time, for Canaan and Egypt. And it's very likely that Isaac was actually leaving because there was a famine in the land. And this picks up the part of the story that I think is really important. So if you have a Bible, find Genesis chapter 26. Turn there really quickly. Press pause, turn there quickly. Do what you got to do. Get Genesis 26 open and get your notebook open. Let's talk about Isaac here for just a minute. Well, while you're turning there, let's discuss Isaac maybe in the picture of your life and my life. What does Isaac represent? Well, it seems to me that Isaac is a passive person. It seems to me that Isaac could probably look at life and say, yeah, I was bullied as a kid, and I was victimized, and I was kind of the underdog, and just went a long time before I ever got married, and so you look at his life, and he's got these obstacles, and he's got these things that he has to overcome. But I think the beauty of these stories in the Bible is that it helps us relate with these characters. right? Because how many am I talking to right now that you were bullied in school? You know, you were victimized at home. You felt not wanted. You know, you read a story about a father that wanted to kill his son, and you're like, yeah, let me tell you my story. And I think that's the beauty of the stories of the Bible, that these just aren't ancient legends, and they're just not holier than thou scriptures of, you know, the biographies of perfect people. These are imperfect people. These are people just like us. And this is why Moses wrote this story in the Bible, is because he wanted Israel to see that there's a certain lesson in the life of Isaac that is important for all of us. And what is that lesson? I think by and large the lesson is this, that God rewards, and let me just say it this way, life rewards the person who, against all odds, just keeps on making progress. And I think that's the story, and I think that's the lesson of the life of Isaac. Because he didn't have fame to lean on like his father. He didn't have fame to lean on. He didn't have a long track record of success, maybe like his father did. He didn't have the excitement and this rags to riches, back to rags, back to riches story that Jacob had. Just in between is, in a sense, this forgotten, lonely patriarch Isaac, about which there is not as much written. You know, he doesn't get all the headlines like his father did. He doesn't get all the headlines like Jacob did. I mean, Jacob becomes Israel. Like, that whole story is fascinating. We'll get to it. He wrestles with an angel. He sees a ladder to heaven. Like, wow. So here's Isaac, and it's like, okay, there's my dad, and God talked to him, and he talked to God, and God made him a covenant, and God blessed him, and Isaac would have to say, you know, the only reason I'm blessed is because everything Dad did. Wow, Dad's awesome, and here's my son, and man, he's seeing incredible things, and God's showing him ladders, and God is prospering him, and he's living this exciting life. And what did Isaac do? Well, Isaac dug wells, and Isaac pitched his tent, and he built an altar. So Abraham was called of God, was given a promise, was given a blessing, was given a covenant. Jacob was changed by the miraculous power of God from the deceiver into the prince of Israel. And what did Isaac do? Isaac dug wells, and he put up a tent, and he dwelt, and he dwelt, and he dwelt, and he dwelt. Do you ever feel like that's your life? Like, I think that's why Moses wrote the story like this. I think he brings the uniqueness and the texture of the different personalities from Abraham, certainly to Jacob, and then the sons of Jacob, Joseph, and all that story. Incredible. But then sandwiched in here is little forgotten Isaac, you know, the little scrawny kid that got picked on at school. And what did he do? I don't know. He's probably a C student. And you know, he made the basketball team, but he never played. And he graduated, but certainly not with honors. But what did he do? He dwelt. Like, he just kept doing the right thing. And I think that's exactly and precisely the gold of his story. And I think that's the gold of our story, because I think Isaac represents the time and space between great encounters with God, or the time and space in between great victories in your life. Isaac represents the time in between these great mountaintop experiences, the Abrahamic mountain and the Jacob Israelite mountain, but then in between is the Isaac space. And it's the Isaac space that really does set the tone for our life. It's the Isaac space that really does determine success or failure. It's the Isaac space is really where those wells are dug. It's that Isaac space when nobody's watching, but you still do the right thing. It's that Isaac space between the Abrahamic and the Israelite. It's that Isaac space where you just get up another day. It's that Isaac space where you just go do your job. It's that Isaac space where you just keep reading the Word. And you haven't had any great revelations since Abraham, and you're not going to have any great revelations until Jacob, but it's the Isaac space. It's the Isaac space where really I think that our lives are determined in many ways between success and failure. It's all about investment. Because investment, the success of investment is based on consistency. Investment is taking the fruit of the past and putting it in a place where you can have more fruit in the future. That's investment. And that's it. Let me say it again. Investment is the process of taking some of the fruit of the past and putting it in a place where you can have more fruit in the future. Now that's like planting in the garden. The farmer understands that. He takes a little bit of the seed from the past harvest and he places it in the proper place. And then the future is there's more fruit than he had in the past. So there's increase. That's investment, right? The Isaac space is between Abraham and Jacob, and it's the Isaac space where investment is made. And I'd say most people that fail not in the Abrahamic or the Israelite, but they fail in the Isaac space. They fail in the Isaac time of their life. The people that succeed, listen to their stories. It's those overnight successes that took about 20 years, right? The overnight success that took, 30 years. Because we see the overnight. That is, we see the Jacob. And we don't understand, or we underestimate, or we just don't know about the Isaac space. That time of investment. If you think about investment really rests upon a person's ability to be disciplined and consistent in the Isaac space. Talk to any expert, any broker that understands investment at all, and they all say the same thing. It is that consistent investing, that consistent investing. You just keep on. You just keep on. You just keep on. And we can talk about financial investing, and that's kind of primarily what I'm talking about. But how about their other investments, like a good marriage? A good marriage exists because people know how to navigate the Isaac space between like the Abrahamic wonderful experience. I'm in love. We're getting married. Isn't it wonderful? The honeymoon is that Abrahamic experience. And then we're trying to find another Jacob experience, another Israelite experience where there's incredible change and there's a shift in our life, like this beautiful shift. Oh, yes. Well, what's between the honeymoon and the great shifts in life that take us to another level? It's the Isaac space. And marriages are made or broken by how we navigate in the Isaac time, that Isaac space, that middle ground. Investment in anything in your future is determined by how consistent we are today. And the things that matter in those consistencies, depending on what your goals are, the things that matter is like you get up and you go to work every day. I don't know how else to tell you to be successful other than get up and find that routine. You get up in the morning, you're going to go to work. How do you become spiritual? Well, investment. It's in the Isaac space that you just get up, you read your Bible. Even if you don't fully understand what you're reading at that moment, you read it anyway. You maintain consistency. How do you succeed over life? It's really how consistent you are. It is navigating the Isaac space. And so when I read about the patriarchs, and certainly volumes could be written about Abraham, and like I said, the three great monotheistic faiths on earth, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all owe their patriarchal fatherhood to this man that lived 4,000 years ago. I mean, that blows my mind. And that's awesome. Well, then you got Jacob, and he becomes Israel, the Prince of God. What a great story. But none of that would really be able to transpire without the Isaac space, because the Isaac space takes the blessing of Abraham and moves it forward to where a guy like Jacob can actually have that experience with God. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Isaac. You think about Isaac's life, and you think about the fact that he was an only child through Sarah. Abraham had other children, but he had one child through Sarah, and Sarah was the key to the promise of God, because it was through Sarah that God said he would give Abraham the seed. And so the whole seed that God talked about, referring to Jesus ultimately, when Adam and Eve fell, that God would put enmity between the seed of woman and the seed of the serpent, that blessed seed, the blessed lineage, rested on Isaac. And I got to tell you, there's blessings in the Isaac space. And listen, it's not sexy. Okay, it's not cool. It's not fun. It's digging wells. Like, who wants to do that? Who wants to go out in the yard with a shovel and a pickaxe and just keep digging until you hit water? Who wants that job? And that's really, I guess in some ways, the only thing that Isaac is famous for. But I want to say again, it's that Isaac space that carries with it the blessing of God from season to season. If you want to be transformed into the image of God, and we spent several weeks at our church talking about this, but if you want to be transformed into the image of Jesus Christ, the Logos of God, the full and perfect expression of God, we are changed into that image. How? From glory to glory. And Abraham is a glory, and Jacob is a glory, but from glory to glory is an Isaac space. And how we navigate the Isaac space determines whether or not we're going to enter into the next glory. And I can tell you as pastor, it is in most cases, people fumble the ball in the Isaac space. It's that middle ground in the journey. When you build a house, it's like moving from Abraham to Jacob. Certainly, you build a house, it's like, well, it's this morning I heard a backhoe down the street here. We live in a housing development. There's some empty lots, and I heard a backhoe, and it's just like I heard that backhoe, and my juices started flowing. It's like the sun's out. I hear a backhoe digging. It's like I love that. That's music to my ears. And oh, it's so fun when you're starting to build a house. Oh, you pick out the plans, and there's a lot of red tape. You go to the bank, you get a mortgage, and you got to get your building permits. No, but you get through that because it's fun, it's exciting, and you break ground, and that's so fun. Everybody goes out, takes pictures, and it's so fun. You dig a hole. You're building a house. That's a definitely an Abraham moment. And then you fast forward the process, and you get in your house, and there it is, and you decorate it, and you have your first Christmas in your house, and all the kids come over, or whatever, your family comes over, and you decorate. Oh, it's so fun. That's kind of the Jacob experience. But I want to tell you, what lies between Abraham and Jacob in the construction process is a war zone. Oh my! If you've ever built a house, I mean, it's a war. You're at war. Because there's a lot of resistance. There's like red tape and inspectors, and then there's contractors and subcontractors, and maybe they made it, maybe they didn't, maybe they did it right, maybe they didn't do it right. Then you got to renegotiate what you were going to pay them. Oh, and let's talk about weather. Right, and it's going to rain, and it snows, and it gets cold, and then you got to reschedule something because the weather. So you're fighting. You just are fighting, and then you even start fighting yourself because it's like you got to get up and you got to go do it, and you just don't want to do it, and you're in the Isaac space. He's just like, oh God, what have I got myself into? Yeah, you know what? Anything worth doing has an Isaac space. Talk to these Olympic athletes. Find an athlete that has ever trained at an elite level for any event. I mean, it could be Olympics, it could be, say a college athlete, maybe in a lot of ways high school athletes, and you know what makes a great football team? The Isaac space. I mean, that's what makes a great football team. What makes a great football team is what they're doing at the end of one season into the beginning of the next season. That Isaac space, that's what's going to make a great football player or a great football team. And that's where we learn from Isaac how to navigate this time in our life. I'm calling the Isaac space. And in chapter 26 is where this whole story is told. And so Isaac's married. He's married Rebekah. The kids are not born yet. They're just trying to figure it out, and he's wandering around. Well, there's a famine that happens in the land, and it's said specifically there in chapter 26, and that it wasn't the previous famine. In other words, Moses calls our attention to that. He says this was not the famine back in Abraham's day. Well, of course not, because Isaac wasn't born. It wouldn't have been the same famine. So why would Moses even say this wasn't the same famine? Why say those words? Because Moses wants us to understand it's not the same famine, but it's like the same famine. And it seems that Isaac maybe was ready to head to Egypt. Now we go to this place, Gerar, where the Philistines are located. And it is the major trade route between Canaan and Egypt. And it appears that maybe Isaac was just on his way out. I mean, maybe he was ready to exit. And he was going to do the same thing that his father did. And he was going to leave. But God shows up and God says, do not leave. Don't leave. Do not go down to Egypt. And so here's the first thing you got to learn if you're going to navigate the Isaac space. And navigating the Isaac space, the first thing you got to learn is you can't bail out. You can't bail out. And that's what people do in the Isaac space. They bail out. It's like, well, I've been bullied. I've been picked on. I've been victimized. I can't measure up to my father's standard, and so they head to Egypt. In other words, they bail out, and you can do that. People bail out in life, like they get cynical, and that's a bailout. People that get cynical in life have just given up on life, and you can get sarcastic, and that's another way that people land in sarcasm, and they become a critic of everybody else, and people who become critical are the ones that have bailed out during the Isaac space. They've left and gone to Egypt emotionally. And you can't let that happen, all right? There's going to be times where it's just boring. I mean, there's times where life, there's no excitement. There's time in your spiritual journey. It's just like you have no excitement. There's nothing going on. God's not answering any prayers that you can see. There's no miracles happening. You're reading the Bible, but it doesn't seem like anything's happening. You go to church and, well, we used to go to church. Remember, anyway, back in the day, if you remember that, go to church and worship, and you're not feeling it. And what God is doing, He's pulling you from an Abraham experience into a Jacob experience, into such a radical shift in your life that you literally become a deceiver into the Prince of God. An amazing thing is going to happen, but you got to navigate the Isaac space. The first thing you have to determine is you're not going to bail out. You're just not going to leave. You're going to stay engaged. And then there's a verse. It's verse 6. 5 words in verse 6. So if you ever have to do a scripture memory verse, this is one of the ones you want to memorize right here. 5 words. It says, so Isaac dwelt in Gerar. That is a statement of success in the Isaac space. Okay, because Isaac dwelt in Gerar. So what did Isaac do? Isaac just decided, hey, moving. I'm going to dwell here. Sometimes the most proactive thing that you can do in life is to dwell, to just not go anywhere. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to give out. I'm going to navigate this Isaac space. I'm going to move from my Abrahamic blessing, covenant, promise experience into this next experience where God changes me into the prince and this incredible journey and the ladder to heaven. I'm going to get there. But right now I'm going to navigate the Isaac space and I'm going to dwell. I'm just not going anywhere. I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to submit myself. I am going to be immovable. I'm going to be as solid as a rock. I'm going to hit the ground every day. I'm going to continue my journey. I'm not going to get distracted. I'm not going to go anywhere else. I'm not going to leave. I am going to dwell in this land. And I think that verse may be one of the most important verses in the story of the patriarchs. Because if Isaac would not have dwelt in that land, would he have been in the proper place, positioned where God wanted him to move into the next season? Who knows? God is sovereign. God is good. God can round us up regardless. But here's a better way to live. Why make God have to go chase you down? Why don't you just navigate the Isaac space like Isaac did? I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to dwell right here in Gerar. And so he planted. He plowed up land and he planted. And he turned his flocks loose and they began to multiply. And if you skip down to verse 12, you can see what happens when we stay consistent. See, you've got the potential of a great marriage. You've got potential to do incredible things, to grow spiritually, to grow your investments, to grow your business. You have potential to create a greater career for yourself. But I can tell you where most people, and maybe not everybody, but most people, where they lose it is in the Isaac space. Because they go back to school, but they don't finish. Right? They just don't finish. They give up. They make a half-hearted commitment to a marriage for 2 weeks. And then maybe they have an argument, so they just give up and they walk away. They make a commitment to investment and they do it for maybe 2 months, and then they decide they want to keep their money because they want to buy a new car or go on vacation, and they just give up on those investments. They start a business, and every business goes through an Isaac space, and in that time, instead of just being determined that we're going to dwell here, we're not going anywhere. We just give up and we take an easy route back to Egypt. And it's always been a temptation for God's people to return to Egypt because Egypt represents the gold that shimmers at a distance, but it's hell when you get there. It represents the grass that's greener on the other side, but when you get there, it's burned up, it's horrible, and you become enslaved in the system that drew you because it seemed beautiful at a distance. No, we're going to dwell right here in Gerar. And here's what happened. Skip down to verse 12. And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year. This is, by the way, look here. This was during a famine. This is how God's going to take care of people in the Isaac space. Keep reading. In the same year, 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him, and the man began to prosper, and he continued to prosper until he became very prosperous. Now that's cool. That is God affirming that when you're in the Isaac space, that it is the precise place that you need to be. But it's not going to happen for you until you decide you're going to dwell there. And so Isaac was growing, his flocks were growing, he was becoming prosperous. Well, then there was pushback. Because it says, verse 14, for he had possessions of flocks and possessions of herds and great number of servants, so the Philistines envied him. And so not everybody's going to be happy when you are blessed navigating the Isaac space. The next verse says that the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and they were filled in with earth. And now here comes this laborious kind of mundane, monotonous, hard work when you're in the Isaac space. And what we need to understand is we're having to redig maybe some wells from previous generations. But maybe Isaac understood this, but maybe he didn't. But we need to understand it, that when we dig wells in the Isaac space, we are digging wells not just for ourselves, but for the future generations. That's why everything in this Isaac space is an investment. It is the seed in the ground. It is the toil that may not pay immediate dividend, but it will eventually. And so Isaac begins to dig these wells, and he digs up the first well. It's down in a valley, and so my understanding of that is that it was a dried riverbed and only would hold water if there was a deluge, some kind of monsoon rain, but that would happen occasionally. But you certainly couldn't live on the river anticipating that it would be full of water, because it wouldn't be. But down in that valley, down below the dried riverbed, there was water. And so they dug down and they found water. And when they dug down and found water, then the Philistines came against them. And they began to quarrel with them. And the Philistines quarreled because they said, that's really on our land, and that's our water down there. And you know what Isaac did? Isaac didn't push back. Isaac didn't fight. Purely as it seems that Isaac would do, he seemed passive. And he said, okay, you can have this. We'll go dig somewhere else. So they dug a second well, and they found water. And they dug that second well, and again the Philistines came and said, wait a minute, now you redug that well, but that's on our land too. And we have rights to that land. And it didn't seem that Isaac fought them at all. It seems that he didn't resist them. He just said, okay. And so he went to another spot and said, we're going to dig here. And for the third time, he dug a well. I mean, does that ever describe your life? The first well he called quarrel, because they quarreled. The second one they called, in English, enmity, which is, again, to have something against someone and to have conflict. And so they called the second one enmity. I mean, does that kind of describe the Isaac space for you? It's like quarrels and enmity. Quarrels and just butting heads with people, like having conflict, quarrels and conflict. That's what we'll say, that the Isaac space is quarrels and conflict. And you just have to keep digging. You just have to keep digging. Now, you might say, well, if I was Isaac, I would have rose up and I would have fought them. Well, really, you would have, huh? It's like sometimes the Isaac space, the better part of wisdom is not to push back, but just to keep on journeying, because you never know what God has in store for you. I mean, you never know what the future is going to look like in the Isaac space. And so they took the first well, and he said, you can have it. We'll just call that quarrel. So the first well was quarrel. And here's what you do in the Isaac space. You just walk away from quarrels. Like quit posting on Facebook. All right, chances are you make a fool of yourself on social media, right? If you argue with a fool, then you become an equal fool. Just remember that. So sometimes in the Isaac space, you're not going to quarrel. You walk away from it. Well, the second one was conflict, enmity, conflict. And what do you do with conflict? Well, I would just you know what? In the Isaac space, if you engage in conflict in the Isaac space, chances are it's going to prolong your journey and prolong your season in between your mountains. And so what did Isaac do? He just walked away from conflict. You know what? I think the devil tries to lure us into quarrels and lure us into conflict in the Isaac space because the enemy's really afraid that you're going to move into a Jacob season and be changed so radically and your life shift so incredibly that he wants to prolong your years in the Isaac space through quarrels and conflict. But what did Isaac do? It may seem like that Isaac is passive, but I think this is a man operating in faith, because he knew, just like when Abraham gave Lot the first choice of the land, he knew, it's okay. I'm a son of promise. I'm not going to quarrel with you, and I'm not going to have conflict with you, because listen, frankly, you're not worth my time. And you got to say that to people in the Isaac space. You got to say that. I mean, sometimes you just got to walk away and say, you know what? I'm better than that. Thank you, but y'all fight over there and y'all have conflict there. I'm moving on. So he dug a third well. And no one came against him. And he called this spaciousness. It's spacious. And so the third well, that name was Spacious. And when he dug that well, an interesting thing happened. Abimelech, who was the king of that area, came to him and wanted a peace treaty with him, because here's what Abimelech said. And remember, these are the same people that were envious of him. Watch. The same people that were envious of him after he walked away from quarrel and conflict and got into a spacious place. Now, the same people, Abimelech, the same people come to him and they want a treaty. They want to make a covenant with him. And so they dig a fourth well. He makes the covenant, and the next day his servants came to him and said, hey, there's a fourth well we dug, and they called it Beersheba, which is a dual word. It means both oath and seven. And I think that's interesting. It's the well of the oath, because Abimelech and him had made an oath, a covenant, a peace treaty, a pact. It means oath, but it also means seven. Seven is God's perfect number, God's perfection. And you see, navigating the Isaac space means that you dwell there and you just remain consistent. It means that you know when to walk away from conflict and quarrels. It means what Isaac did in verse 25. So he built an altar there, and he called on the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants dug a well. And that place that became Beersheba was a place where Isaac just said, I'm going to build a tent, I'm going to build an altar, and I'm going to dig a well. And compared to what Abraham did, that sounds so small, because Abraham did that repeatedly. What Jacob is going to do and his sons, Isaac, what did Isaac do? He dwelt, and he dug wells and walked away from them. And then he just put up a tent, and he built an altar, and he dug another well. But yet, in that moment, Isaac was the linchpin. He was the link that actually brought the covenant of Abraham to the next generation, and he did it in this area that I'm calling the Isaac space. There's something else interesting here that may or may not be something, I'll just bring it up, is that Abimelech in the area of Gerar is where the Philistines lived. And if you know your biblical literature, you know that the Philistines were always in war against Israel. And the initial covenant that was made with the Philistines was made here with Isaac and the Philistines, represented by Abimelech. And there was a peace treaty. There was a covenant made there. And I wonder if legally, the legal right for Israel to have victory over the Philistines, which included David defeating Goliath, I wonder if that whole legality of Israel's future victories was based on the fact that every time the Philistines attacked Israel, they were breaking an ancient covenant which gave Israel the legal authority to invoke victory upon them because they were breaking an ancient covenant that was made here with Isaac. And so if that's true, maybe not, but if it's true, that this ancient contract gave legal authority that when broken by the Philistines, that Israel would have victory over them as a just cause, that just maybe what Isaac was doing in the Isaac space wasn't just to carry the covenant to Jacob and his sons, but actually continued to pay dividends to give Israel victory for generations to come. And so the beauty of the story of Isaac is how to navigate that Isaac space. Being consistent. Dwell there. Walk away. Know when to walk away from conflict and quarrels. Know how to just put up the tent and build your altar to worship God. Tent represents your home. You're going to establish your home and you're going to raise your children. You're going to work on your marriage, and it's not fun. It's not easy. It takes time. We're navigating a space of years in the Isaac space. And you're just going to continue to worship God at that altar, and I'm going to continue to build my family at that tent, and I'm going to continue to dig deep into this well, and I'm going to dig, and I'm going to dig, and I'm going to dig, and when the enemy stops it up, I'm going to dig it again. And if it goes dry, I'm going to dig deeper, because I'm going to navigate my life in this Isaac space. It's not fun, not exciting. There's no bells and whistles. It's just consistent work. Some of you are in the Isaac space. And this is a good space because it's the time where you invest into your future and the future of your children if you have them, and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. God only knows I'm standing here today because of past generations navigated their Isaac space for me. And so I want to pray for you. I want to pray for you. If you would like to contact me, the easiest way really is to go to my Facebook page and you can private message me. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can, when it's done, you can go to my Facebook page. That's the easiest way really to get a hold of me. Because I love you and I want to see you navigate your Isaac space. I want to see you walk in your full, abundant blessing. So I want to pray for you, okay? Father, I pray for every soul watching and just ask that you would help us understand that we're in the Isaac space when we're there. Help us not to try to run from it down to Egypt. It puts us in a bondage, but help us, Lord, to dwell there. Help us, God, to build our tents and our altars and dig our wells, to know when to walk away from quarrels and conflicts. And God, I just pray that in your due season, you will bring the right people to us, that we make pacts and covenants and promises, but mostly, Lord, we make investments. Give us the patience to make these investments. Give us the wherewithal, the stick-to-itedness. Help us not to be impatient. Help us not to be cynical and sarcastic. Help us not just to give up and quit, but in full surrender. Help us to continue to travel, to dig, to dwell, to navigate through this Isaac space. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you. Thanks for watching.